this brings me to our topic today, presentation which I was given, which is what about the kids, helping children of any age, even grown ones, understand and adapt to your diagnosis. So that's the topic I was presented. To kind of get a clearer understanding of this process, I'm going to ask, I have 3 questions. The last question you don't respond to, that would help guide us through this presentation. The first question I would want to ask the audience would be 1. Has anybody, simply by a raise of your hands, that helps me understand the audience I'm working with, is how many people have gone through the similar things that the client walked into my office and talked to me about? The question is, I feel I'm going through pain and I'm struggling, but I feel those around me do not understand what I'm going through. A simple raise of a hand will give me an idea. Okay? Thank you. The next question would be, when you were going through that challenge, when you asked that you said those very things to your loved ones, did you feel that your loved ones actually understood what you were going through? Did you feel they knew what you were going through, or did you feel it was, okay, I'm just saying something, I don't think they know what I'm saying? A simple raise of hands would be fine. Okay. Last question would be, but I would need no answer, that would guide us through the process, would be, when you were going through that process, what did you do? How did you manage that process? That would help us through the Q&A as we go through the seminar. All of us here, or most of us here in the audience, I would say, have a better knowledge of myositis than I do. Because the reason why I'm saying that is lots of us are living through it, or maybe our loved ones are living through it. However, based on literature, we do understand that myositis is a rare and complex condition which also has things like chronic inflammation causing muscle weakness. Some clients who I've spoken to during the consultation will say, sometimes I get so weak, I fall. Sometimes I cannot swallow. Sometimes the emotional impact of it is more than actually the physical aspect of it. We do know there are different types of myositis, so I believe most of us know probably an idea of our diagnosis or what aspect of myositis that we are struggling with. We have the dermatomyositis, polymyositis, inclusive body myositis, juvenile myositis, and more. The bottom line is, in all these variances in the illness, something that is always outlined with most of the clients are fatigue, mobility issues, pain, emotional challenges due to the impact of what you're going through. Brings me to the next slide, which simply would be, going through this process, there are things that I feel that are kind of unique, things that kind of make each case unique. I always look at clients as individuals, not a collective bunch. Lots of times we might classify, oh, this person is sick, we'll put them in a class, but necessarily it's not true because each person is unique. Everybody deals with things differently. And there are some things that would create that uniqueness in it. A good example would be, sometimes people don't understand me, could make you unique. Or people understand me, could also make you unique. Another example is onset. Those going through the health challenge, it could be, when did this start? Did this start at the early stage, the juvenile option? Did it start in the middle stage of my life? Did it start at the end? How did any of these things start? Because when the onset also helps to determine how you're going to react to what is going on. A good example could be, let's say I'm in my prime. I'm in my 20s or early 20s or 30s, and I have this dream and vision of where I'm going to be. And all of a sudden, I start having all the symptoms. That is my onset. That onset could lead to more difficulties because, 1, I feel my dreams are lost. I feel I cannot accomplish any of those that also could create another huge problem. So the onset plays a very big role in trying to understand how to communicate what is going on. Well, I included environmental dynamics. What is going on in your environment? What is going on in your home, society? Is it cold? Is it warm? Is the AC in the house working? Are the bills being paid? All that are all environmental factors that also could impact how this pain goes on. We have social dynamics and family dynamics. Your friends, what is the social process? Are your friends there? Do you feel you have your social interaction, or have you lost them? Do you feel like going out to meet with people because you're having flares? You feel like you cannot move. You're not probably staying in one place based on what is going on. Family dynamics. Do you feel your family understands your pain? Do you feel family, the people you call family, know what you are going through? Do you feel you can open up to them? Are they critical? Are they understanding? Do you think maybe they don't believe what you're saying? Maybe you're just making it up. We don't know. Family dynamics also plays a big role. Cultural or belief systems. Some people might feel this is not real. It's just made up. It could be some of the diagnoses. We have some that is particular to a different cultural group. Do you think the people within your culture, loved ones, understand this health? Because they might say, I've never had this diagnosis since it's a rare disease. Value systems. Your healthcare provider. Lots of times we have healthcare providers. Lots of times our healthcare providers might not understand what we are going through. Because my healthcare provider is my healthcare provider doesn't mean they know what I'm going through. You can also meet your healthcare provider and they're only trying to get you in and get you out. Because now most of the times when you get in to see providers, they don't technically spend much time with you. 15 minutes, you're out. Then the next person comes in. Do you think they're understanding? All this could also be some variables that could play through this. The next challenge in this, what's your pain, is the subjectiveness of this process. And why I say subjectiveness is we are all individuals, different cultural backgrounds, different health situations, and different family systems. When it comes to pain, pain is subjective. And lots of things that people go through pain, chronic inflammation, fatigue, and the symptoms associated with this is the chronic pain. Pain is, to some degree, is subjective. Not to some degree, to a great extent, is very subjective, and I can tell you why. I might have a high threshold to pain. Maybe you don't. So how do we scale the pain? Your pain could be a 5. 5 to you might be 0. 5 to me could be a 10. So you might go into your provider and say, my pain is a 5 or is a 10. My provider might think, okay, maybe the pain is a 3. So how do you navigate this? And I could say my pain is a 5, and the provider or the loved ones might be saying, ooh, okay, it's a 5, but you're taking all these medications. Are you sure you're not addicted to your pain medication? Then that could be another challenge you have to walk through. That's what brings me to pain being subjective, and having that understanding of the subjectivity when it comes to managing pain helps to understand yourself. I'm going to break down the presentation in a little bit of a form that first, we need to understand ourselves. That will be a step 1, living through this, because we are the ones who are going to be trying to communicate what we are going through to our loved ones. The second step is understanding the environmental factors playing in, then finding a different way or ways to help to communicate what we are going through to our loved ones. Just kind of going through, I think I already hinted a little bit on this area, barriers among family members understanding this condition. I hinted earlier about questions about onset. I talked about severity. Severity, in a sense, is, do they believe that you're actually going through something or you're just making it up? Because probably it's not that it's you, it could be everything we know about the client. A good example, if a client walks into my office and I give them, tell me about your pain, and they'll tell me my pain is a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10, okay, they might be young. They might be probably, let's say, I'm just using this age bracket, they might be in their 20s or 30s. But I'm looking at that and saying, okay, you're young, you can manage the pain a little bit better. Or if the client is applying for disability or any other thing, most of the times my clients get their disabilities denied because they are young, because they look at the system and say, he or she is young, they don't qualify for this, let's stretch it out to see. So it now brings the question is, okay, the severity, how severe is this process? Vagueness of the diagnosis. Lots of people don't understand the diagnosis itself because it's a rare diagnosis. It's when you go in to see a provider, they might give you a different diagnosis on the first. It might take lots of understanding before you come to the diagnosis because of what you're going through. Not believing the diagnosis, value systems, as I said earlier, the family dynamics plays a significant role. Understanding your family dynamics helps you know how do you communicate this to your loved ones, because this is an emotional process, likewise a physical process. To embark on this journey, I'm going to use a theoretical approach, which is called a phenomenological approach. This approach is more of an ecological approach, where by that I mean we're looking at analyzing the ecology environment. Ecology simply means an environment. You're analyzing your environment. So it's usually used in the field of environmental studies, but somehow we are adopting it, putting that into this process presentation helps us understand. So I'm metaphorically adopting it in here. In essence, helps us to analyze what is going on in our environment. The first step would be the phenomenological approach emphasizes dialogue and exploration of people's experience, your environment. Two things that usually plays out in environments are one, seasons. That's the first one. The other stuff that plays out when it comes to environment are, after your seasons is the environment. What are the things in the environment that are creating it? And here, this is the process I'm looking at. We have changed the season now we have moved from the summer, I'm assuming, and now we're gradually getting into the cold season. The weather is changing. My clients will always tell me, when it rains, my pain flares up. It's worse. I cannot step outside. My muscle stiffness is so bad, I cannot do anything. When it's cold, my pain is higher. This is seasons. Some others will tell me when it's warm, I feel my body is kind of soft and I can walk and do things easily. I also have another group of clients who will tell me, no, when it's hot, I cannot do much because I cannot deal with the heat. So it depends on the season, so that's seasonal. Then when we talk about environmental, could be what are the things playing out in the household around me that also could be creating my pain, or increasing my flare-up, or increasing how I deal with my health condition. So by this, we explore, this system, theoretical framework helps us to explore family members' unique needs, their aspirations. It helps us to avoid categorizing things, focuses on individual experience in the moment, and helps us explore the sense of the person at that time. I'm talking about the individual going through this. Avoiding imposing belief systems or hypotheses instead of being open. It also gives us a room to have discussions about what is going on. Describing the purpose, meaning, values, conflicts, at the same time trying to explain what this is going to, how this process is going to take place. Going through the health system or going through this process could lead to periods of, when clients go through this process, I want you to put yourself, the last question I asked was, when you were going through this process, how did you manage it? What were you doing? That is the individual going through it. And this brings me to the phenomenological approach. Lots of times when people are going through pain, the first thing that comes to mind is depressive feelings. Feelings of irritability, anger, feelings of loneliness, feelings like people don't understand what I'm going through. Wordlessness would play in. Crying, fatigue. There are lots of symptoms that go with depressive feelings. How am I understanding myself within that cause. For other people, it has to do with anxiety. Everything has changed. I don't feel the same. I'm always anxious because I'm not sure when the next flare-up is going to be. Nothing works. I can't dream of the future. I'm only staying in the now. The other process is this diagnosis could be traumatic. Not could be, for some people it is. Not just to the individual, it could also be traumatic to the family, which is also the family system. Because now the family is changing from I could do things to now, okay, how do we adapt to accommodate this person? So both the individual going through the health challenge and the family is changing. It could also create frustrations on both sides, both for the person going through it and also the family members who are also going through it. It could also lead to grief and loss. Now, I cannot dream about the future. There are lots of things I cannot do. That is a loss. I'm grieving all that. But maybe the people, loved ones, caregivers don't understand I'm going through grief and loss. But they don't see me as someone who stays to myself and cry most of the time, or kind of going through all these medical appointments and taking all these medications. It could also lead to what I will call, because now majority of people going through pain technically are on medications. Maybe lots of medications depending on what the diagnosis and how the individual is able to manage their pain. By doing that, that could also create a stereotype, which I've seen that play out. I'm now on these medications. My family think now I'm addicted to the medications. I always want to be on pain medications because I cannot move and my body is stiff. Let's say there's a history of addiction in the family. How does the family perceive you when you're going through that? Do they believe that maybe this is your way of trying to get the medication so you can stay at home or not? That all has to play with family dynamics. So this is just kind of creating a broad view of what the individual is going through. Now we are going to start looking at how do I communicate to my loved ones, knowing fully well first, what am I going through as an individual? Starts with you. How am I dealing with anything, all this process is going? Do I think I can continue with this, or do I think, forget it, I'm not dealing with my family members, I'm just going to deal with this myself? So having done that, explored yourself, the next process is how do I now communicate that to my loved ones? So since the topic is how do I communicate this to my loved ones, we decided to kind of break it down in these steps. One is how do I share what I'm going through? First step is understanding my diagnosis, which would include what are my symptoms, which would include what are my treatment options and how is this impacting me. So that will be the first step of trying to communicate this to your loved ones. If you understand your diagnosis, you understand how it's impacting you, it makes it easier, probably understanding also how you're dealing with everything going on. So if what is going on is making you so tired that you cannot communicate, your loved ones might struggle in trying to understand what you're saying. If what is going on has changed you, whereby you're always in pain, and one thing we know with people going with pain, sometimes they're less patient, they are more irritable, and they just want to isolate or want to be by themselves. That's something I know pain does. At least I've gone through pain. That's not the same with this. When I injured myself lifting heavy weights, and I felt loved ones didn't understand what I was going through. So I was trying to bite everybody's head off because I just felt people didn't understand what I was going through, and they still kept keeping expectations. You need to do this and do that. And I'm saying, but I'm in pain. I cannot move. I cannot lift the child, but the expectations are still the same. The good example also would be timing. What would be a good time to express what I'm going through to my loved ones? If my children, let's say they're younger children, even older children, if they're playing video games or they are doing their stuff, is that a good time to explain to them what you're going through? What would be a good time to explain my health condition? What would be a good environment to have this discussion? If the games, let's say there's football game going on, would that be a good time? If the family is a football family, would that be a good time to explain? So when and where becomes that. The next one is age. How old are my children? How old is my loved one? How do I explain this to my loved one? Age for me, I can break down age in two ways. You have what I consider, or what is called the chronological age, and what is considered as the mental age. Chronological age is, I'm 50 years old, that is my chronological age. However, I could be 50 years old, but I could be behaving like someone who is a teenager. That is my mental age. Two different age systems. So the fact that I'm explaining to someone who is 50 years old, thinking they would understand what I'm going through, might be wrong. So it's understanding your environment, understanding, yeah, he wears a 50-year-old person's body, but I'm actually talking to a teenager, so I need to break it down when I'm explaining to this person as if they are a teenager. Maybe that will help them understand. If you don't do that, then that could create an extended level of frustration. So when it comes to age, you have adult, you have children, you have teenage age. So understanding that what you're going through is a complex medical condition, then it's also good to understand the age. When talking to children, mostly children, I'm going to put children in two brackets, which would be from the age of 4 to 7, for the age of 8 to 12. Then I'm categorizing adults from the age of 13 and up. That's just a little bit of a category. When you are going to be talking to children, there are three things that I would say you should consider. First, you need to be honest. Two, you need to be very empathetic when you're talking to them. And three, you need to consider the age-appropriate way to express what is going on with you or what you're experiencing. So by breaking this into those four groups helps you know what kind of language do you need to express or explain or communicate to your loved ones. Young children between the age of 4 to 7, you have to make your explanation very simple. Children about this age have what we consider magical thinking. They think I can change things or I created the problem. So at this point, this is an age whereby you have to be straightforward, make it simple. A good example would be myositis is a condition that makes mom, dad, brother, sister tired. And I might need to rest more often. Another example, at this stage, you have to emphasize that they did not cause what you're going through. It's not their fault. And they're not going to catch the disease. It's not something that is an infectious disease. You're trying to break it down to their age because the kids of this, people within this age group would also feel it's their fault. Kids always internalize a lot and feel I created it maybe because I did something wrong, mom and dad are sick. So it's breaking it down and helping them express that more. School-age children, I put in between the age of 8 to 12. At this time, you're going to be more detailed. A good example would be myositis affects my muscles. It is harder to do certain things I used to do easily. At this page, you can explain to them what medications you take, or you might need to take medications, what kind of exercises your doctor is giving, medical providers are suggesting you do, and also you also can explain to them how often you're going to be going to your medical appointments. This group of children about this age can think a little bit concrete, so they can see things in a different way, and then probably the dialogue between them can now start taking place. The other group I have is teenagers from age of 13 and up. I call it probably teenagers and adults. This stage, we can say they have more concrete. They can see things, understand things. They can also be able to dialogue with you a little bit more. Here you can get more detailed and honest, explain to them what myositis is in its detail, talk about your treatment processes, the potential changes in your routine, and also the changes in your daily life at this stage. This time would be when you're explaining this, You also would be ready to have an openness to dialogue with your loved ones. However, you have to also understand is myself as a person, what am I going through before we start having this engagement? When communicating with either of these groups, you have to be very empathetic. And based on this, you have to have a level of active listening. By active listening, I mean you engage in active listening where you focus entirely on what your family member is saying to you, both verbal and nonverbal. Children speak more via body language than actually what they say. So if we go by what they say, your son could slam the door, okay, and leave out the house. He or she is frustrated, and you can see all the body language. You might internalize it as maybe they don't like you. It could be they have no understanding of what is going on. The family dynamics has changed, that they just feel this is not what I knew. It sounds like at this time you might start feeling overwhelmed. Then it's also good to sit down when you're talking to them to find out and say, hey, sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed. How? Tell me more about what you're going through so I can understand and we can walk through this as a team. Always try to validate your loved one's feelings, which could be also challenging because you are also going through difficult moments. So trying to validate someone else's feelings can also make it even more problematic. However, you're trying to understand the individual within your family since you're trying to communicate what you're going through. Avoid minimizing things. Be careful not to minimize concerns or emotions. A good example could be, I'm fine, I will be fine. But your loved ones are seeing you and saying, she or he is not fine. So why are they saying they're fine? So that also could start creating a level of distrust in the system. Or don't worry instead. Those statements could make. I usually love asking open-ended questions. Tell me what you're feeling. Tell me what you're going through. That allows the individual to start talking to you. You want the children to talk to you. That way you can now walk with them in your journey. First, having open language, talking about language, trying to understand how you communicate your language to them. So, as I said earlier, encourage questions. When going through a health situation, encouraging questions is ideal. Encouraging questions is recommended. Always encourage your loved ones to talk to you and ask as many questions as they can. A good example would be when they ask the questions, validate their questions. Assure them that you are here. Though things might change, but you're still here, you're going to do your best to walk through this with them so both of you are in this together. Educate them. If you have a better understanding of what you're going through, inform them. However, if you do not know much about what is going on, lots of people tend to go online to go read up things. And when they read it up, I don't know who wrote it up, so they could run with what they see and get frightened. I can give a good example. I use myself as an example. I have, I think, a bunion on my leg, and I was told, okay, go and see the doctor. Saw the doctor. Doctor recommended, okay, sure. You might need to file the bunion a little bit, cut it down. I went online and went and reviewed surgery of bunion online. Looked at the procedure, came back and told the doctor, hell no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just going to walk through this pain myself. Till date, I have not done that surgery. So all I did was just simply going to changed all my shoes. If I wore a size 11, I bought shoes of size 12 just to avoid going through the surgery. So sometimes that could be a misinformation because that was my fear, what I read, what I saw, and I said I'm not doing this procedure, and I haven't done it till date. So still a pain, but I'm still walking through it. Hopefully I'll change my mind in the future. Based on that, your children also could read so many things online. It's readily available. So that's why it's also good to educate them, to also find out, okay, what are they going through? What are they feeling? What have they read? So that way you can either counter what they have read and help them understand where and what is going on. Offer reassurance, offer support. Reassurance simply means I'm here, I'm not dying. I can live through this. Though my life is changing or has changed, but I'm still the same person that had you here. Do you understand? What are the changes you have noticed I'm going through? Talk to me, we can walk through it together. Or if you feel so afraid, maybe if you trust your child or your loved one, you can accompany me to any of my medical appointments with my providers. Let's talk through. So you're engaging, but however, make sure that you know the chronological age and the mental age of that child when you're going through, because the doctor might just say things and you brought and signed them off, and then that could create another whole slew of confusion. So you also have to consider what is the age of this child or the person I'm bringing in to have this discussion with my provider. You could include, as I said, include your loved ones in the process of this journey you're going through. Part of the inclusion could be, maybe there can be someone who will remind you when to take your medication. Might be somebody who you can talk to, if it's possible, not everything about what you're feeling, and maybe helping you through the journey. Maintaining an open communication is good. And I will say this. The clients that will come into my office and say, I cannot talk to my loved ones. I do not say anything to them. I keep everything inside. And I'm just coming into the office to talk to you, which is fine. They are talking to me. However, does your loved one know what you're going through? No, I feel like biting their heads off. Now the question now comes in, how would they know what you are feeling? Do you think you can communicate to them? No, that I don't feel they would understand. Then that is when you're trying to understand your system and trying to involve them. So your loved ones would know what you are feeling, because if they do not know, then your pain is going to be worse. That is going to be part of the environmental conditions that would increase it. Maintaining, as I said, maintaining open communications is key. Expressing your needs is an option. That brings me to seeking external support. When going through this challenge, external support could be essential, especially when you feel you cannot communicate this to a loved one. Seeking a therapist might help. Support groups might help. I know there are support groups whereby it's for family members who are going through difficult time. So that could be a support group. They could come with you through your own support group to listen to what others are saying so they could learn more. It could also be you inviting them to, maybe if you have a therapist, sitting down with them and talking through. Maybe the therapist becomes a buffer to help explain more to the loved one, so they don't feel, okay, now I understand. They don't feel, okay, why haven't you told me all this while, but you're here getting frustrated. So that could be a support system while you're moving through your journey in life, managing the myositis. Always monitor your emotional well-being. Self-care becomes important. While you're doing this and communicating to the loved ones, do remember you have to take care of yourself. Self-care first. If not, then you are not going to be able to provide that support to your loved ones. If you understand what you're going through, it helps you understand maybe what your family members are also going through. Acknowledge their roles. If your child or your loved one is helping you with the medication sometimes, tell them thank you. Thank you for this. Thanks for being here. I know sometimes I might not be patient, but however, I do see you. I do see everything. Then you try to find out what are they going through. Then maybe that could open up a door for more communications to express what is going on, so both of you can start walking through your experience. We always try to be patient. It's easier said than done. When you're in pain, you're not patient. When I'm in pain, I'm the most difficult person you can be around, because pain, as I said, is subjective. So when I'm in pain, I'm not easy to walk with. Maybe you just give me a bottle of water. I don't want the water. I need something colder. You want it colder. You bring something hot. It's always going to be confusing. So it's always good to understand yourself and understand, okay, can I be patient when I am walking through this with my loved ones? And also try as much as possible to show gratitude to the people who you have and the people you love. So at the end, we're almost getting to the end of the presentation, so that way, if you have any any questions, you can share them with me. It's always important when you're going through this situation as an individual, always think of who is my support system. Who do I have in this process? Your support system helps heavily in the way you're going to manage your symptoms. And if you have a good support system, it will also help you find a way to better communicate your feelings to your loved ones. So creating a support system, which could involve extended families, friends, professionals, I would recommend that. Having a routine and normalcy, maintain such a routine and normalcy as possible to provide a sense of security. So if my loved ones know that I'm someone who dresses well or someone who is always clean, good. However, since I had this situation, I don't care how I look. I just keep everywhere untidy. I get this thing that throws away normalcy to some degree in the household, whereby they feel nothing is the same. So if there's a way to create normalcy, it doesn't matter to what extent, the children and loved ones feel, okay, everything is still the same, even though maybe mom or dad is going through this, or my brother or sister is going through this. Promoting healthy coping skills, which would include reducing stress, physical activity, maybe hobbies, and spending time with loved ones would also help the individual going through this to normalize, keep things the same. Involvement in care, which is having your children age-appropriate tasks in the home, not changing everything radically because of what you're going through. Providing guidance and setting boundaries with your children is also healthy, because at this point, you can now start kind of delegating some roles to your loved ones so they now know. Finally, so having all this process opens up for us a way of having the discussions about how do you communicate to your children. In a nutshell, when it comes to communicating to your children, 3 things I would want everyone to think about. Be honest. That's the first one. 2, be empathetic. That's number 2. Then also number 3 is also have it's a good timing for you expressing yourself, so that way it opens up the door for more discussions and dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was wondering if you might take your questions from that mic right there. And I've got 2. My first question is, this has been so wonderful and such great information, but a lot of us were diagnosed a long time ago and had communications under stress without this education. Do you have any guidance on, like, what do we do now? Let's say we messed it up and we didn't do it right. How should we maybe repair any damage or approach it now with our families?
Okay. Is this working?
Yes.
Okay. So for me, that brings me to the family dynamics option. If my family has seen me as someone who is not understanding based on my health challenge for a while, it's going to be a bit difficult if this has gone for years. So the question would be, is there any way I can engage them so they can come back, or kind of talk to them and say, okay, I need to speak to you about a little bit more, or maybe you involve a therapist or a healthcare provider who can be there to explain, okay, mom was going through this or dad was going through this. However, maybe they struggle in learning how to express this to you, so this was just their reaction. However, their reaction doesn't mean they don't love you. Their reaction means that what they were going through was difficult. So the only thing they knew was just to react, but not necessarily communicating. Now we're trying to open the door for communication so we can speak more about your experience when I was going through this, my experience when you guys, I'm just saying if I'm the one going through it, when I was going through it, that allows the dialogue to start, and then both families, maybe if they are open to start learning and letting go of the past and pushing forward.
Thank you. And my last one is actually part introduction and a question on behalf of TMA, but I'd like to introduce you to the Parker family. They are not ready for this, but this is Mariel Parker and Alexandria Parker, and they both were care partners for their dad, who passed away last year. We're very grieving still about that, and they are so involved that they came to me about having a care partner group for kids. We have a care partner affinity group, but that is for, adults, and we're interested in how do we help other kids manage this, but they're under 18. So you're free to maybe talk about that now or after the session, but I just, wanted everybody to know there's a rock star present. Right? You're 15, right? Coming to me with things. I'm going to hire you soon. And these are gifts for you guys for also volunteering. Thank you.
Okay.
So I have a couple of questions. I've been good about communicating with my kids about what I'm going through. I have an 8-year-old and a 12-year-old. And the 8-year-old actually is really good. She's very helpful to me, and she's always looking out to see what I need help with. My 12-year-old boy is in a very selfish phase, and I want to, like when I told him I was getting a rollator, he said, "Mom, that's so embarrassing. You volunteer at my school, and it's bad enough for my friends to see you with a cane. They're going to say, like, oh, your mom is old and fat and she can't, do anything." And I said, well, you should tell your friends to shove it and that your mom is a rock star. But, just trying to help them deal with the loss, because the whole family is going through this. And, sorry. There's things that I wanted to do with them, and I'm not going to be able to. Like, I wanted to take my son golfing, right? But I'm going to throw the golf club. We tried to go fishing, and I threw the fishing pole into the lake. I can't do that with a golf club. And just things, they're not going to be able to experience, and how to help them through that. And also the increased level of responsibility. He's got to become the man of the house now. When Dad's not around, he needs to step up and help me with things that Dad would normally help me with. And he's like, I'm just a kid, I feel he shouldn't have that level of responsibility on him. But he has to, and how to help him deal with that.
Okay. All right. So thanks for the question. So to me, I know this is a painful process for you, and thanks for sharing. Regards to your son, I would approach this in 2 different ways. First, validate his feelings. That will be the first step. Validate his feelings by saying, I don't want you to come to school because of he's noticing the changes you're going through. Because at that stage, children are very impressionistic. They look at what is going on in the environment. They're not necessarily processing what is going on with you. They're only worried about what their friends are going to be saying. So validating his feelings are fine. Step 2, this process could be trying to engage him based on what you know about him. Is he someone who understands, or is he someone who is very critical? Or is it someone who processes things easily? So if any of this are that, let's take, for example, he's someone who does process things easily. Step 2 could say, I do understand your pain. I do understand what you're going through. I know your friends might make fun. However, Mom loves you. I'm here. I'm doing my best. What I'm going through is not a choice of mine. I did not put this on myself. This is what my body is doing at this time. I'm doing everything present to be there for you. You might not like it because you feel your friends are there. you can reverse the role and say, what if I'm not present in your life? Is that better? What if I don't come to your school? I'm not involved in anything in your life. Would that be better? Is that what you want? Or do you want to at least give me the honor to be there for you so we can have these experiences together? Coming down to his level of discussion can help him understand you a little bit. He doesn't have to like it. It's about him trying to relate, trying to understand mom is doing her best to be there for me. We can later on talk about what is the best for him in the future. So you're already going golfing, you're there. You're trying to throw the ball even though you can't. You're present. What if you decide to stay at home and watch TV and be grumpy all day? Would that be what he wants? So it's kind of things to kind of have those dialogues with him. Maybe he does understand, but with time, he might get to start reasoning and saying, mom actually is doing this because she loves me, not because she wants to be out there and maybe make my friends have fun and maybe make fun of me or make fun of the family.
I have had similar discussions like that with them. You know, I have the rollator because I fall down all the time, and I want to stop doing that. You know, I don't want to be hurt. And, you know, if you don't want me to come to your school because it's embarrassing, then I won't come to your school. You know, I have tried to, you know, and I did validate, you know, I said, I understand that you're embarrassed. I'm embarrassed too. You know, I don't want this either, but this is the way things are now. And, you know, I just, you know, I do try and maintain an open dialogue about it, but I just sense that it's more for him to deal with than he really can let on.
Okay. How old is your son again? 10 years
He's
old?
12.
He's 12. So a 12-year-old, based on what you know about him, do you think he's a 12-year-old who is a 12-year-old chronologically, or a 12-year-old who is a 12-year-old mentally?
He's a mental 12-year-old, yeah. I mean, like I said, he's just in a very selfish place, and I understand that. I do. I just want, you know, I'm the mom. I'm supposed to take care of him.
Okay. So, Mom, aren't you taking care of him?
Well, yes.
So it sounds like, and I know this is not a therapy session, so it sounds like to me that you are putting much pressure on yourself rather than allowing yourself go through what you're doing. You're trying to do things the way you feel you need to do it, not necessarily the way the environment and the seasons are making you go through it. Would that be correct? Okay. I will come back to you, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Clarissa Epps. I have DM, and I'm a mother of 5. So I don't know who you are. What's your name?
I'm Julie.
And how long you had what are you diagnosed with?
I have IBM. I got diagnosed 4 years ago.
I had dermatomyositis 5 years, so I'm trying not to cry. I can resonate with everything you're going through. I have 5 kids. Right now they're 18. My son is 18. My daughters are 16 and 15. My little sons are 13, and my last one is 11. So I get it. I had them tell me, my 8-year-old, when he was 8 at the time, I want my old mommy back. I don't want this new mommy. You have to go through, we don't want this, they don't want it. And I was like, I understand it, because if I know I don't want to be here, you don't want to see me be here. So it's the adjustment of the home. And my daughter, we had a, you know, that teenage stage, it's a little difficult to deal with because they're going through their own emotions, their own thought process. And like, hey, you know, they was embarrassed of me coming to school, but my son, when I went to his 5th grade back to school night in my rollator, because I was in a wheelchair last month, for a few months last year, they said I wasn't going to walk again. So I went to that school in that rollator, and my son held my hand, because I would have talks with them, like he said, understanding mommy's not going to be walking that well. They was just happy to see me out of that rehab. I guess it's going to have to take something catastrophic, which we don't wish, for him to see you somewhere that maybe she might not come out of this, and maybe I don't care what everybody else's views are. And my children are at that point, but they still struggle with, you know, I had my other son who's 13, and he was in his top classes, and he went down. This is his 2nd year in summer school. He shut down. Each child is different. But all I do is like, hey, Andrew, do you want a hug? Do you want love? And his biggest fear was, are you going to die? And my daughter screamed at me. We got in an argument one day. And I'm like, you don't know what I'm going through? I have this illness. And it was all about me. And she said, you don't know what I'm going through. I have to wake up one day and not have a mom. And I'm going to be, what if one day I don't have a mom and I graduate college, you're not going to be there. I graduate high school, you're not going to be there. It shuts you down and say, hey, you know, this is not about me. It's about us. You know, there's no I in team. And you have to prepare them the best way you can. But you have to be you. You still are a good mother, okay? And I have certain children now are at the stage where they're there to help me. Like my oldest son, he's my home health aide now. And I have my daughters. You have your ups and downs, but just keep loving on him, encouraging him, and letting him know that my mom is a rock star, showing up to school in a rollator, a wheelchair, anything. He's going to grow up one day and be so proud and apologize, because at that age, they're still maturing and they're still trying to figure out who they are. And they shy away from that, you know, the kids in school make it this model, like if something's awkward, that's cringy, that's weird, and it makes them feel embarrassed. But my kids are not embarrassed no more, so they will get past these stages because I went through it. And I went through this section of disparity of, I don't want to do this. I'm not a good mother. Then I have the reassurance of people around me that you are doing your best as a mom. You know, your limits, if you have to rest, I go to the games with them. My daughters are in track and field, they're in tennis, they're in choir, hurting and all. I don't make promises anymore. But I said, you know what, I will try to make it. If you don't see me, to just know something happened. They had to get adjusted to that. And there's times I couldn't make it, like when I was in a rehab last year for a month, and they would come to visit me. That was heartbreaking, because I'm like in a fragile stage where my kids need me. It's like somebody cut my wings. It's like I've been wrapped up with ropes, with rocks, and thrown to the bottom of the river. I cannot help them. But you are helping him. Your husband's, I'm a single mom, so you have your rock. I don't have my rock. God is my rock. You know, so coming from a mother with 5 kids by myself with no support, you're going to get through it. You know, you're going to get through it. And I'm here, if you want to talk afterwards, I'm here to give you that emotional support. Okay? All right.
Excuse me. Hi, my name's Jennifer. I have a 16-month-old and a 4-year-old, both boys. I was 6 weeks postpartum when I started to have symptoms. So my 3-year-old at the time, he saw a lot. He witnessed a lot. And there are times he makes comments like, Mommy, I hate the sun. Or, you know, Mommy, I want to lay down too. And, you know, it's like he cares. But we've never really had like a conversation about it. Should I wait until he makes those comments to have the conversation and wait till he's ready? Or just sit him down and talk to him about what I'm going through?
So if your son or your child is experiencing it, it might be a good time to maybe look for an age-appropriate way to communicate what you're going through to the child, so the child understands. Because children are sensitive; they do sense things, and your child is at that stage where they look at things from a magical perspective to some degree. So you do not want the child to start feeling, okay, maybe there's something I did wrong, that's why mom is sick. It's very easy for children to do that. So if you feel, maybe I can talk to them and saying, hey, mom is going through some changes. At this point, this is what I'm going. Don't go into all the details because they're not at that age. Maybe that would help them then normalize things and saying, yes, I'm going through this. However, I'm still mom. I'm still here. I'll do my best to keep things the same. Still love you the same, nothing has changed. However, mom might sleep more. Mom might be in pain more often. Mom might have to go to so you're just explaining the basic stuff. But when they get to a certain age, then if you feel more comfortable, then you can have more discussions and dialogues with them.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to share from our family's perspective. My father, as Rachel shared, my father passed away of complications of inclusion body myositis. I'm well into adulthood, but my daughter, I'm an only child, and I have one child, and this is my daughter, Rachel. She was 2 when my father was diagnosed, and so she grew up, in the household with my father's slow decline, my father asked if he was going to fight IBM to the best of his ability, if we would all live together in the house with him to circle and to support him. So that's how closely my daughter was visualizing what was happening through those years. And so she's now 15. My father passed away last year. And so the way that we, I think, approached it is because IBM strips you of control of your life, strips you of the ability to function as you normally would want to. My heart goes out to everything you said. I know exactly what you mean. It's hard for a daughter to see that in their parent, and for a grandchild to see that. They've known no different. But it's still hard. And so you're right, because their lives now are, they have to confront that on a daily basis. So I guess my point would be, my suggestion would be to, as much as you can, try to create some purpose around it. This is what we are doing now. What we've always done is try to advocate as much as possible, educate others about the disease. There you're taking some control, you're teaching others about it, and then trying to bring about awareness and helping others. It's probably the only thing we can really do to the best of our ability. But kids do that really well. You know, they can talk to their peers and so forth. You can fundraise. He can help around that. So, but that's why my daughter, she saw this need for the kids, the caregiving kids, to be able to come together and speak openly amongst each other, you know, in the language that they use, just to help lift each other up and support. So I'm hoping we'll be able to get that together. So my only question is now, putting on my mom hat again, is how do we know, is there a way to know that we are internalizing that approach to control too much? Can it be unhealthy? That's what I want to make sure I'm not doing with my daughter, but that's the whole way that we're dealing with our grief, is to try to make purpose out of this and live for my dad.
Okay, so you said your mom has it now?
My dad passed away with it.
Okay.
It's my daughter. His is my daughter.
Okay.
And it was her grandfather.
Okay, so you are not. So usually, there's a book I love to read. What's the title? It's Search for Meaning is the name of the book. I can't remember the author. It was a psychiatrist who lived through the time of, what was that problem going on in Germany, the Holocaust period. And he was thrown into the system, and when he was done, he came up with a book called The Search for Meaning. So that's the title of the book. I'm trying to remember the name of somebody Frankel, yeah, so great. So that for me is a book that gets lots of meaning when you go through it's an old book, but reading through it helps you to search for meaning going through difficult times. And search for meaning sometimes could start off, I think his statement, sometimes we do not have control of what happens to us, but we do have control of what meaning will apply to the process. So you make meaning out of what you have. And that's how you can manage situations. In his own thought process, that's how he made meaning. So you're not trying to control anything, you're just trying to search for meaning, trying to make things, normalize things, and have a purpose in life. So I feel you and your daughter and your family are doing a good job trying to manage what you have gone through for the past few years, and then finally it culminated to losing your dad at the end.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead. Oh, I think so.
Hello, so I was just diagnosed last year with DM at age 50. I have a 16-year-old and a 21-year-old. I guess my question is, like, my boys see me as like a strong person before everything, like kind of like a strong person, but now, like, how can I define the line? I don't want them to feel weak because they're seeing their mother feeling weak, but at the same time I want them to understand that this disease had impacted my life, as if like my life stopped. I still want to be strong for them, but there are like really times when I'm just like hopeless and weak and I'm grieving. How do I make my boys understand that, but don't lose hope that mommy's gonna get better and all? Thank you.
Can I answer a question? Being a mom, there's no manual, especially when being sick. The only thing you can do is be you. And you have to understand this is the new version of you. And the only thing they can do is grow to learn the new version of you. You're strong now. It takes strength to be in his body. It takes strength to be in his mindset. It takes strength to be in pain and despair 24/7. We're in a glass jar screaming and no one can hear us because it's invisible. So all you can do is encourage them, encourage yourself, and believe in you. Belief is the strongest thing you can have in this. And guess what? Your boys will look at you and thank you, Mom. Thank you for never giving up. Because if you give up on you, they're going to give up on you. It's not do as I do, do as I say, it's do as I do. Kids watch us and how we handle stressful situations and how we get through these things. Be kind to yourself. You've came a long way. I know it's a lot of dark areas in your life, and there's a lot of disparity in why me, and allow yourself to grieve, but have grace. And sit down and have talks with them so they get an understanding of what you're feeling. Don't have that strong exterior and don't allow yourself to open up to be honest with them. You have to be honest even though you feel like it's gonna push them away. Give them that time to get their space to recollect what's going on. And then have another meeting and sit down and talk with them. It's very important that y'all talk a lot, show a lot of care and love and attention with each other because it's needed. You both are going through something that's new to you guys. They're not used to this version. You're not used to this version. But have grace and love on them and love on yourself as well.
Okay.
So I have a 2 and a 4-year-old, and I got diagnosed about 6 months ago. And since then, it's just kind of, I do IVIG, and I've had a lot of doctor's appointments, different specialists, and obviously now I'm on a lot of medications. My question is, we've been pretty open with our kids, just in terms of like, oh, I have to go to a doctor's appointment. I have to take a rest now. I have to take these pills. How much information is too information?
Okay, so for a 2-year and a 4-year-old, I would say the 2-year-old is still, we can manage the 2-year-old because probably they're only saying things, hugs and all that could work for the 2-year-old. The 4-year-old already is seeing the changes in the household. It's seeing you struggle, it's seeing what is going on and understands mom is not the same because kids understand mom is not the same or dad is not the same. At this point, I would start off by trying to explain to the child a little bit, not so much details. Give the child some more time. Talk to the child about there are some changes going on with me, but mom is doing her best to manage it. You can explain a little bit. Sometimes I might feel tired. Sometimes I'll need to sleep. But you're not going into any details that much because you can give them too much information and that could create an anxiety level for them whereby they don't want to go to school. They feel something is going to go wrong if they leave the household. So that could create a whole slew of problems. So just the little you can explain to them, but always try to create reassurance. The more you reassure them that you are here, you're still mom, you're still the same person, those subtle changes or lots of changes are going to be happening, but you do your best. That will be the best explanation for a 4-year-old. When they start getting a little bit older and then you start seeing that, then you can now start explaining more or telling them a little bit more details. But I will still wait till maybe when they're somehow maybe teenage or maybe when they're around 8 or more, because for a 4-year-old, if you do that, they might start panicking. And once you create a child who is panicking, you now have a bigger problem when it comes to school. They're not going to stay in class. They will not be able to concentrate. They might be acting out, and they'll act out in school just to be at home with you. And then they're at home, you are frustrated, the child is not in school, then you have another problem to worry about. So it's just based on what do you tell the child, but reassurance becomes a key.